scene in a play by an English poet, poet from the time of Shakespeare, where a person was so not a good life, and he wants to do tshuva in the end. And in this scene, he's lamenting that he cannot. He feels tied to the forces that seduced him. He can't escape from them. Or even the famous scene from Hamlet praying, my prayers rise up, my words rise up, but my prayers remain below. A person, when you commit to doing something bad, you get stuck there. So sometimes we saw in the last chapter, the Yetzer Hara will release a very lofty soul that got stuck in negative behavior, in the hope that his behavior will become even more negative. And then the Yetzer Hara will, it's like an investment, he'll harvest a big crop of negative energy, which will keep him going. And sometimes, with the help of a Rebbe or a tzaddik, this person can end up doing a tremendous tshuva. So the Yetzer Hara loses. It's a gamble. He releases sometimes he gets hold of a very, very high neshama, if you can imagine this scenario. He gets hold of a very, very high neshama and holds on to it. And then he may release it, hoping that it will bring in a big profit. And that's sort of behind the story that we were getting at yesterday, that's brought down in a long mimer by the Mittler Rebbe called Pokech Ivrim. He opens the eyes of the blind, about this minister who left Yiddishkeit. He became a Christian, and he did a lot of harm to other Jewish people. And the Alter Rebbe sort of arranged, after the Alter Rebbe was no longer even alive in this world as a human being, that this person would do a tshuva, and he did an immense tshuva, a huge tshuva. Because his soul was a very lofty soul that had been released with this gamble, and the Mittler Rebbe saved him. Or another story along the same lines concerning the Rebbe Maharash, Rebbe Shmuel, fourth Rebbe of Lubavitch, who picked himself up one day with his attendants, and they went to Paris, and they stayed in a luxurious hotel for princes and nobles and kings. And he went to the gambling, to the casino, and he was watching a handsome young man playing cards and drinking wine, and I'm sure there were women as well. And he stepped over to him and said, "Young man, non-Jewish wine will clog your heart and dull your mind. Be a Jew." It was uncomfortable in the first place. What's this rabbi doing in the casino? And then he repeated himself. And the Rebbe Maharash was so overwrought, so emotionally excited, he sat down in the first chair that he saw, which happened to be an elevator chair for these rich people who couldn't make it up the stairs. The servants that sat down in that chair, the servants would come and carry you up to your room in this posh hotel, elegant hotel. And he sat down in that chair, and the servants rushed over and picked him up in the air, which is highly significant. He said, no, you must have made a mistake. No, I didn't mean to sit down in that chair. But it shows graphically that by doing such a tremendous piece of outreach, because the Rebbe explained that young man was in fact a tremendously high neshama, had not been in the world for centuries and had just been released by the Klippa. And so the Rebbe Shmuel, whose life was very short to begin with, took days out of his life to go to Paris, literally to save this neshama. And as a result, he also experienced a physical elevation, an aliyah. He also had an aliyah in this world. So they lifted him up in a chair. But his real aliyah was a spiritual one. And then in the middle of the night, the story concludes. This is the story was told by the Rebbe in his very first mimer. On Yud Aleph Shvat, 1951, when the Rebbe assumed the leadership of Chabad, he told the story of every one of the Rebbeim about their tremendous Ahavas Yisrael. And this is the story that he told about the Rebbe Shmuel. How he went, he took these precious days out of his short life in order to go to Paris to rescue this neshama and schlep him out of Klippa. And I told you this idea also once. This will be the second time I told you. The question is asked: why do we have earlobes? What good are they to your? What purpose do they serve? Except you have someplace to put your earrings. You didn't have earlobes. What would you do with your earrings? So why do we have earlobes? So the one answer is so you won't hear Lashon Hara. You can close, someone talks Lashon Hara, close your ears. It's a good eitzah. You hear people talking Lashon Hara, move away. Don't listen. But the Hasidim say another reason for the earlobes is that when a person slips into the realms of misbehavior, and he can't get out by himself. It says a prisoner in jail cannot break out by himself. He needs help from the outside, right? A prisoner cannot release himself. So if a person gets stuck in the mud spiritually, how do you get out of the mud? So it says that's why you have earlobes, that the Rebbe can come and pull you out. When I was a young man, when the war was going on in Vietnam, the president of the United States was LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And there was a picture of him, not exactly flattering picture of him. He had a beagle. And he was holding his hound by his ears. Lahavdil, that's what it says. The earlobes are for. Okay, chapter 8. So we've explained here in the first lines here that the energy in forbidden foods is not something that we can act upon. We have to ignore it. We cannot engage ourselves with it and think that we can elevate it. You can't. Okay? That's the long and the short of the whole thing. Now we got to this point, we stopped yesterday on page 128. This is probably the health agency calling me about Mrs. Pape. Just a second, let me take this. Yeah, spam. Okay. So he says, and this applies not only to transgressions that are listed in the Torah, clear transgressions, the thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that. That's obvious. But even rabbinical teachings that will keep us far from making a mistake. Like we gave the example yesterday of Pesach. We try to eat the afikomen before midnight, so that we won't transgress and fail to say Kriya Shema in the evening before dawn. In other words, we have to. Women, you girls are not limited this way, but a person has there are time limits. A lot of mitzvahs have an expiry date. You have to do them by a certain time. One of them is to say Shema. You have to say Shema in the morning before the third of the morning is up, and you have to say Shema at night. You have to say the Shema twice a day, by morning and by night. So in order that you shouldn't drink 4 cups of wine and maybe fall asleep, we try and finish the Seder before midnight to keep a person very far away from transgressing and missing the expiry time for Shema at nighttime. So here's what he says on page 128, that the prohibition on negative commandments also extends to security teachings of the rabbis, that we shouldn't we should stay far away from making any mistake. You know, like there was a rabbi went to a very wild college campus in the wild and woolly days of the 70s. So in order to make an impression on the students should know that he was there, he had to ask the rabbi, an open forum with the rabbi. He was pretty innocent about the ways of the world at that time. There was a certain drug that the young people took called speed. You probably never heard of it. And they asked him, what did he think about speed? And he said, well, he thought about 55 was normal. Now the prohibitions that are instituted here's a very, very important idea that the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe brings up here, which is we have 2 levels of prohibition. We have prohibitions from the Torah itself, and prohibitions which are safety measures, a safety net established by the rabbis. I say you might be tempted to think, you surely would think, that if you make a mistake and you transgress a negative commandment from the Torah, that's pretty serious. That's very serious. Heaven forbid. And if you only transgress a prohibition from the rabbis, it's not so serious. It's not an explicit mitzvah of the Torah, except that the Torah says you have to listen to the rabbis. It doesn't say in the Torah that you have to stay away from this. It comes along the rabbis themselves and say, it's not so simple, because here, second paragraph, page 128, very, very important concept. The words of the sages, the words of our teachers, we are more strict about keeping them even than the words of the Torah itself. So therefore, continuing now, the third paragraph, page 128, Gama Yetzahara v'koycha misaba l'dvarim ha'asurim. So this means that the impulses that a person has to do something that's forbidden, that, like it says here, koyach hamisaba, the power that makes a person desire to do something that's not right. Even if he doesn't intend to do it, but he could even think about doing it. That's also a desire. And after all, it's inside his head. Who's going to know? Yes, girls, we have to be very careful about what we think. A person can do all kinds of transgressions, all kinds of negative things, and nobody will know because it's only in his head. We have to think about this from time to time and remind ourselves that things that we think about are on a certain level as if we do them. In the world of thought, we're doing them. Rabbi Mendel Futterfass, the famous chassid who was 7 years in Siberia, he used to say, you have action, speech, and thought. So action is doing something. Speech is speaking about it. There are a lot of things we can't do, but we can speak about them. Like if we learn about building the Beis Hamikdash, it's considered as if we did it. We can't. But at least in the world of speech, we could. And will be considered as if we did. Similarly, if we talk about doing a good thing, it's considered as if we did it. And what about the opposite? if we talk about doing a bad thing, or we think about doing a bad thing, like you enjoy reminiscing about some things that you did, you thought were pretty exciting when you were younger, and you think back, oh, those good old days. No, it's considered as if you're doing it all over again. You're still playing into the hands of the Yetzer Hara. So this desire to do things that are forbidden is also, it says it here, a shade. What is a shade? A shade is not a lamp shade, not a window shade. A shade is a Hebrew word for a demon, a negative angel. And Reb Mendel used to say that the things that you think about is a whole universe. You can do things in the world of thought. You can make speeches in your mind that you won't say it out. You'll be too ashamed. But in your mind, you can enjoy really giving it to somebody that you resent their behavior, you resent the way they're behaving. Why do you resent it? Why do you resent when you see somebody doing something not so nice? It's because it's in you. If it wasn't in you, you wouldn't even notice it. Like a little child doesn't know what money is. Put some dimes, shiny dimes on the floor, and put some dollar bills on the floor in front of a 2-year-old. He'll take the dimes because it's shiny. He doesn't know what money is. Similarly, when you see somebody doing something reprehensible, terrible, how does she do that? Doesn't she understand? The fact that you're noticing it means because you're doing it also, maybe on a different level. You're sensitive to it, and that's why you notice it. So this is what he's saying here. The lust, the desire for forbidden things is where it comes from negative spiritual beings called shadim. And their source is from the 3 impure klippas. Masha ein kain hayetzer, okay. And these demons are called Goyish demons, non-Jewish demons. So you heard of good angels? You have bad angels. Goyish angels. Who are created, or the life source from them. Hashem has to give them life. Why does Hashem have to give them life? Because otherwise you'd never have a bad inclination. You have no struggle. No struggle, no pain, no gain. No struggle, no achievement. So Hashem creates these things just to test you, to build up your strength spiritually. So these demons are called non-Jewish demons, Goyisha Shadim. A person, a Goyisha Yetzer Hara. I have a Goyisha Yetzer Hara. Masha'en Kain HaYetzer Hara. What about now things that are permissible? Let's say I desire from the Viennese table at the wedding some of these pastries. Or I already had a meal. I ate my fill. I had enough, but I'd like some more of that delicious stuff, whatever it might be. Bottom of page 128. The Yetzer Hara. So the Yetzer Hara then entices me to do things beyond the necessary. There's another teaching of Hasidic ethics that we shouldn't take from this world more than what we need. Whatever we take more than what we need, we're going to pay for that. It's going to be food for the worms. So the evil impulse and the craving after things that are permissible, so they're not tied down, but you're submitting yourself to them. You're allowing the craving that you have for this particular thing, a Slurpee, whatever it might be, to rule you. This is also from Klippa, but it's a Yetzer Hara, it's a Yiddish Yetzer Hara. And what does that mean? It's a Yiddish Yetzer Hara. It means you can redeem it. You can save, you can save that energy. How do you save that energy? By rejecting it when you're in the same situation. One more time, with the same food, the same temptation, the same desire, you don't need it, but you like it, it's delicious. And you say, I had enough. I don't need it. I don't need it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be the boss over my desires, over my appetites. I'm not going to let my appetites run my life. That's hard. That's hard. I remember my mother, Alei Sholem, used to come back from a wedding. She would say, I wish I never had that pastry, that cake, that whatever it was. I know I shouldn't have had it. Because we pay for it. Nothing is for free. So we've been introduced to two new ideas here. A Yetzer Hara, who tempts you to do something that's not right, could be a Jewish Yetzer Hara, that you should overindulge in something permissible, or a Goyish Yetzer Hara, which is to get you to indulge something that's not permissible according to the Torah, and not even permissible according to the teachings of the rabbis. But the permissible, the Yetzer Hara, a kosher Yetzer Hara, you can do tshuva on it. You do tshuva on it, and you redeem it, and don't go back there. Make a strong decision. That's it. I'm finished with this. Like drinking, people have to struggle. Alcoholics Anonymous, people who struggle with smoking, people who struggle. I used to drive a car before the days of faxes and internet and emails. So if you want to communicate, you want to interact with people in business, you have to drive. I have to drive regularly every day or two. I had to drive for an hour and a half a day. What do you do when you're driving? I would have a Yetzer Hara to turn on the radio. You turn on the radio, you're trying to lead a kosher life, to have kosher thoughts in your mind, kosher feelings in your heart. You turn on the radio, they wanted to tempt you to have non-kosher feelings, non-kosher desires, and nonsense. I had a teacher once in university. He revealed this concept that there's good news and bad news, and on all the publications and everything that's reaching out to you. What sells the paper is the bad news. People want to read the sensational news. Who killed this one? Who killed that one? Who was caught doing this? Who was caught doing that? What's the good news? The good news is the advertising. So a person, what are you supposed to do when you're driving your car? If you're driving all alone, you should have things by heart that you've learned that you could think about. You have to have kosher things to think about. What do you do when you get on the subway and there's a lot of noise and a lot of bad behavior taking place all around you? What are you going to do? You have to have things prepared that you can think about. And if you're lazy and you don't take the trouble to think about something because you're a little tired, so then you're bombarded with negative influence. Okay. So there we come to page 129, that your person could do tshuva on these things because they're permissible in the first place. Mikol mokim, koydem bad. What happens before a person does tshuva? Koydem shahazar lekadusha. Before you rescue these desires, the kosher but negative desires in your heart or in your mind. Who sitra achra uklip is completely negative. And now comes the next step, which is not only the Yetzer Hara gets its hooks into your heart and into your mind, and you do tshuva on it, You don't want any more of this. But what happens if you go to a wedding, you're wearing a beautiful white blouse, off-white blouse, shvat or whatever it's called, and someone spills on you some sauce or food that has sauce and makes a stain. So you go to the cleaners. You take it to the cleaners and you clean it, right? That's what happens after 120 years. Your body has to get cleaned up from all the negativity. So it's a big favor that the body decays and the worms come and they clean it up for you. And then it becomes clean and it can go with your neshama into Gan Eden. Wow, and wonderful. They're harsh chemicals that they use the cleaners to clean your blouse, but your blouse is very happy because it's getting clean. So passing away is nothing to be afraid of. It's a cleansing process that prepares you to enter into the realms of holiness. However, sometimes the blouse gets clean, but you can always see that something was there, a remnant of a stain. It's not really discolored. You could wear it to another wedding, no one would notice, but you'll know that it wasn't exactly 100% the way it was when you bought it, when you first wore it. So the same thing, even after a person does tshuva on these negative inclinations in your heart or in your mind, there's still a stain. Page 129, three paragraphs from the bottom of the page, there's a trace that remains attached to the person's body. Why? Liyes, kikol, mikol, maichel, maishka. Everything that you drink, everything that you eat, nasa, take it from miyad, dam, ubasar, mibasari, it becomes your flesh and blood. What you eat and what you drink becomes you. That's what they say, popular, right? Popular wisdom. You are what you eat. You are what you think. You are what you say. You are what you do. And this is why the body has to undergo this period of 11 months in the grave. He calls it here in English, the purgatory of the grave, in order that's the spiritual cleansing process. To purify it, page 130 of uncleanliness, which it received from enjoying permissible things, but just you did it because you like it. Just you like it. It has nothing to do with Hashem. It has nothing to do with your desires to make the world a better place. It has nothing to do with anything but you like it. So that has to be cleansed, because this is coming from the Yiddish Shadim, which are servants of the Yetzer Hara. Unless, and here, fasten your seatbelts when you hear this, because this is going to give you a perspective about what it means, how fortunate we are to have been here in this yeshiva, how fortunate we are to be here in Crown Heights, how fortunate we are to be together in the neighborhood of the Rebbe, to have a connection with the Rebbe. Ella im kain, unless you're dealing with a person, a person who never took any personal pleasure for himself in his whole life long. Who was that? Like Yehuda Rabbeinu HaKodesh, like Yehuda Hanossi, the prince, Rabbi Yehuda, the prince of 2,000 years ago, who put together the Mishnah that we learn, which is the building blocks of our Yiddishkeit. Okay. That's our lesson for today. Tough stuff. Musar, that's called Musar. But we have to do it sometimes. Just can't feel like an ostrich and put our head down and pretend that it's not there. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'olam 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 al kel masha barasa v'ha'ayis b'ayim melech kol hayim baruch. Chei ha'olamim. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here. See you, Bezos Hashem, tomorrow. Boker Tov, Iska.
Have a good one, Rabbi.
Have an even better one.
Thank you.
Mine look like this, yeah, both the better and better. Oh, yeah. So far off. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Happy to be back. Okay, I think it looks really pretty. I told her I would move over and long.
Yeah, I'm going to. Remember Joe from Wilton? Oh, yeah. Twins? Yeah. Actually, he's so cute. I thought they are triplets. Oh, wow. Because they all, yeah, but I got to see their daughters. Which is weird. Oh, wow. They're usually like two that are identical. Trying to hang out with my baby. We were matching, it wasn't planned. We did after the moment, so we haven't had to worry on my part. Oh my goodness. The room gets in. Kids all talk to it. That's great. And all the girls are on the team. Like one time my heart, I was pushing back up, they crushed it in. I was like, you're gonna have that memory forever. Yeah. How was the weekend here? Jarvis was nice. You went with someone. Who did you go with? Oh, well, Friday was my roommate's birthday, so. Oh. Yeah, it was just, it's something I have to part of.
TBD because Rob and Justy is getting his surgery.
Oh, right,
for
yeah.
hip replacement.
Right.
So we're waiting to see who shows up and who's teaching.
Nice catch, Abby.
Yeah.
How long is it gonna be out?
Like 2 weeks, he was saying, like it depends on recovery time.
The hard part is you can't go up the stairs afterwards.
Yeah. So he's out as long as he needs to recover and then. Yeah.
All right, what are we talking about here?
You tell us.
So just a notification.